All right, how's everybody doing? Hope you're doing well. Hit me up on the chat. Let me know where you're from. I know I got a few. One I got Miguel said, good morning. Miguel right here. Miguel from where? Good morning, señor. Saludos, Miguel. Let me know where you're from. La Pastora. One of my coaching clients. She's awesome. Oh, she's going to come on strong. This is a fast learner, so. Next, let me see. We got Debbie Johnson. Debbie. Welcome. Where you from, Debbie? Put that in the chat, and I'll be starting in just a bit. Today is one of those days where it's your questions that I will answer. So I got a topic I want to cover, but I'm going to let you decide what you want to talk about. So I'm going to take some questions. Andre from Indonesia. Love it, man. Thank you. Welcome aboard. This one from Portugal. Amade Suleiman. Suleiman or Suleiman? So welcome aboard. All right, Debbie comes in from Wyanett, Illinois. I'm from Chicago, so we're pretty close neighbors. Trinidad and Tobago. Man, Vincent, love the area, man. Love the area. Alvaro, hi, from Mexico City. Alvaro, welcome back. I think you were on here before. So anyway, today's Friday, so I'm going to answer your questions. I got a topic, again, I want to talk about. So now would be a time to ask me questions. So whatever you have, light up the board, and I'll try to go through them as much as I can and try to answer them as best I can. In terms of selling, one of the things I want to talk about today is, why people get stuck. That's going to be my topic of conversation, like why people get stuck in selling. Because I think it's really fascinating how, many people, when they struggle with selling, it's that they get very self-conscious when they sell. And I think the one reason people get self-conscious is, tell me if you think this is right. There is a stereotype, of what a salesperson should be. So I think that's one thing that people have in their brain about what a salesperson really is. And a lot of it, like if I ask you right now, the word salesperson, what comes to your mind? Hit me up on the chat. What comes to your mind when you think salesperson? Don't be afraid. Put it in the chat. Tell me what you think. I have my own images of what comes to mind when I think of a salesperson. So I want to hear what you have to say. What comes to mind when you think of salespeople? What do you think? And if I get a car salesman, by the way, can you guys hear me? Give me a yes if you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up. You guys can hear me, right? Right here, door-to-door selling, that comes to mind, right? Trying to push something on you, Craig. Absolutely, man. Craig Max, I love it, like the artist. You're too funny, Kevin. Boiler room, right? That's exactly it, right? Close the deal. You guys can hear me great. Miguel says, I don't want to be sold. A person who creates, Royston's got the right attitude here. That's the mindset you should have. A person who creates value in people's lives. Unfortunately, Royston, the majority of people don't think like that. But that is the right mindset, right? Because that's what we do. I once heard a phrase, and I've always loved this phrase, and there's a book written around this, and I don't remember who the authors were, but they basically said salespeople are value merchants. Oh, I love that phrase, right? Like a value merchant. You know what I mean? Is that you go from, let's say, city to city, delivering value. So it really is about, that's where you got to shift your brain. It's not that you're selling a product or service. You obviously are. But when you become if you see yourself as a value merchant, which is you're delivering value in exchange for value, that shifts your brain. So think about that. So the one thing that holds people back is, this is almost like, I don't want to be like a psychologist here, but this is like self-image, and has this ever happened to you that when people ask you what you do, and if you're a salesperson, it's almost like you don't want to say you're a salesperson, right? That's why we come up with terms like business development, account manager, right? Account executive, because nobody wants to say, I'm in sales. I'm a sales guy. I'm a sales girl. Most people don't want to say it because they're like a little embarrassed of that actual title. And I think this is part, again, the self-image that we have, because we've all seen Boiler Room, which somebody mentioned already. I think it was Craig Max. We also talk about, if you think of Glenn Ross. Remember that? Glenn Ross with Alec Baldwin? I drove a BMW, you drove a Hyundai. You know what I mean? When, ABC, always be what? You know the deal, right? You see the Arthur Miller stories about a sales guy always carrying his bag and trying to sell something to somebody. And a lot of the perception is that we're trying to sell something to somebody that they don't need. We're trying to sell something they really don't need. And I think that's the wrong mindset. Our job is to find people who need our product or service and sell them. And when you have this type of mindset, you almost like defeat yourself because you can't get motivated. But if I ask you, look, somebody gave me this example one time. He said, if you found out like this great secret, right? Let's say a secret to being healthy. You just found out the greatest secret to being healthy. What would you do the very next day? You probably tell a lot of people about it, right? Because you're happy to what? Share the information. You ever been to a great restaurant? Did that ever happen to you? You go to a restaurant, you walk in, the concierge right there treats you beautifully. Then they see you and your partner, you guys sit at a nice table, and the ambiance is just beautiful, right? The music is just loud enough to have polite conversation. And then they bring over the food. The ordering process is easy. The food menu is great. They finally bring over the food. Oh, it's fantastic. It's wonderful. And then as you're leaving, you got great dessert. Everything is just perfect. You walk out the door and you're like, oh, that was one of the best dinner experiences I've ever had. What do you do the very next day? When you're talking to somebody, you start telling them, say, hey, went to this restaurant last night. You had to hear about this. And you start telling people. But isn't that what selling is? If you believe in your product or service, you should be that excited to sell your product or service. Like, hey, you got to hear about this. I got this thing for you. That's selling to me. So the first one that holds people back is the stereotype. I think the second thing that holds salespeople back is, and we talk about this a lot, is that you don't have a process for selling. Right? So you don't have a process for selling. In the Sales Velocity Academy, we have a course. And I think it's, before I forget that, by the way, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe and then hit that little bell right there if you want to get notifications when I go live. So in the Sales Velocity Academy, I have something called, how to sell, which is a sales process. Because what makes us nervous about selling is when we don't know what to do. Like even in cold calling, right? Because that's part of the process. Maybe you don't know what to say, how to say it. And within that process of cold calling, you don't know what the value messages are, right? So again, all these courses are in the Sales Velocity Academy. You should check them out. But what really holds us back, and kind of what I want to talk about today, and again, I'm listening to your questions. So if you guys want to ask me questions, now would be a time. This is your day, man. So I'll keep talking because I got things to say. But at any moment, give me a pause, give me a question, and I'll handle that. And so what stops us from really selling? I've been really exploring this topic. This has been an interesting topic to me. Because I'm trying to figure out how do we get stuck? And by the way, not just in sales, in business, how do we get stuck, right? And I'm trying to figure out, what is it that just like sometimes you can't go forward, sometimes you can't move, sometimes you feel paralyzed, sometimes you're afraid. And I go, what is that? And I was reading a book, and I think I mentioned it in my last live stream. The book is called Impossible to Ignore, Impossible to Ignore. And it's the second book that I've read on memory. Yeah, memory. And so it talks about how we remember things really impacts our ability to do certain things. So let me just slow this down because this is to me, how sometimes you read something and then it finally hits bottom and you're like, I never looked at it that way. And in the book, this is again my second memory book I'm reading on how we retain information. And the way we retain information is that when you hear something, you see something, you smell something, they say we encode the information, right? You first encode it. In other words, you take it in through your eyes, your ears, you encode it. When it gets into your brain, there's a part here that they call, and I like to use the word elaboration because elaboration means you reflect on it, right? So it comes into your brain and then you reflect on it, right? And it's in there. It's running around in your head in there. But then the third part of memory is that you have to be able to recall it, right? That's the tricky part of memory, that you have to pull it from your memory, right? So you have to bring it out of your memory, right? And I find that fascinating, right? So we encode information, we take it in. We then elaborate, we take what we know and combine it with what we just learned, and then we kind of do that to it and think about it, right? And basically what we're doing is trying to figure out how does this all fit based on what I know already, how does it all fit? Because in many cases, it doesn't replace what you have in your brain. It just kind of finds a way to mix in to see what works. And then we recall information. In other words, we recall, like if I have to remember certain information or how to work out a problem or how to do a certain thing, I recall it out of this part right here, right? So I recall the information. Bear with me. This has a lot to do with sales and it has a lot to do with success. Just bear with me, man. Just hang in there. Let me run with this a little bit. So this is the process of how we grow. We encode, Take it in. I'm giving you content right now, right? Just talking to you right now, and you're listening to me and watching me, right? Watching and listening. And in your brain, you're going, how does it fit? He's giving me stuff. How does that fit in my brain, right? And then maybe a week from now, you're going to remember this conversation. Oh, yeah, Victor said something, and you recall it, right? Hang in there with me. Hang in there. I'm telling you, it's going to get good. And so if this is how we form experiences, right? This is how we remember experiences. It's like, this is how it works. Now, here's what's interesting on the memory side. And again, I'm just talking about memory today and sales and how it impacts you. But if you have any questions, put them down there. But I'll keep going in the meantime because I love this subject. Did you know, this one blew me away. It was another memory book I was reading. And this one just, again, you know what, it hits bottom. You're like, damn, I never looked at it that way. That's a really good way of looking at it. Let's say you went on vacation. By the way, let's say did you go on vacation in the last year? Go ahead and type it in. Tell me where you went on vacation last year. Even if you took a day off. A vacation could be anything. I went somewhere or I took a day off. Tell me what you did, where you went. Just put it in there. I went to X place. Put it in the feed. Trust me, I'm going to have you do an exercise right now. It's really cool. Watch. Do this exercise with me. So go ahead and put it in the feed. Just where you've been. It could be a small vacation. And maybe it's just, I don't know, you went one day to a park. It could be that type of thing. It could be, I went one day to a park. I don't know, I went to Disneyland for one day. I went to, whatever, do something for one day. Went to a pool or something. Give me one thing that you're doing, right? And now, as you're thinking about that thing, here's what's happening in your brain. Here's what's happening in your brain. What's happening is that your brain is now trying to recall what happened, right? And so you're trying to verbalize that, right? So here's, if I can just, let me see if I can draw a head here. I'm not good at drawing, man, so that's your head, right? So now your brain's trying to go, hey, what was that vacation? And then you want to be able to what? Speak it and write it in the chat. Here's where I went, Victor, right? So let me see, a Las Vegas baking show, cool. The Psychology of Persuasion is great as well. Influence, great books, by the way. These two right here. Dean Hankey's talking about these books right here. Let me see if I can add it right there. By the way, there's two books. I mean, one is Influences by Dr. Robert Cialdini. Great book. The Psychology of Persuasion is by, I believe, Dr. Kevin Hogan, a good friend of mine. So, good dude, man. Oregon. Dean Hankey went to Oregon with an A. I think you meant an E, right, Dean? Just messing with you, man. So what happens is, so you have that memory in your head. Now, here's what's actually happening. When you went to, in this case, Oregon or to the baking show, keep this in mind because this is interesting. If I were to ask you, let's say one day after you went to Oregon, or one day after you got back from Oregon, or one day after you went to the bake show when you got back, you would have, I'm going to call that memory one. That's your first memory. And you would tell me, hey, Victor, here's what happened. Blah, 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 blah. Here's what happened. I was over there yesterday. And now, what's fascinating, that we now allow some time to pass, right? Delta T, time. Some time to pass. Let's say 6 months passes by, right? So I'll put 6 months here. 6 months passes by, and I ask you the same question. Tell me about that baking show. Do you think M1 will match M2? Yes or no? Do you think M1 will match M2? Yes or no? Give it to me. What do you think? Vote. Do you think it'll match? I'll wait for your responses because this is good. I'm telling you, man. This is going to explain a lot when it comes to success, business growth, and yes, even selling. Do you think M1 will match M2? What do you think? No. By the way, this is very nice. Thank you very much. Mia, thank you very much. I'm really learning a lot from your videos. Thank you for sharing your talent. During the phone interview, what would you say as an opener so they will remember you? All right, we'll get to that one. Let me just finish this one up. Sanket says no. Welcome back, Sanket. And so the answer is no, but why? Push it a little further. No, but why? Dean says not exactly, which he's absolutely right. But why? Why do you think that is? Give me your reasons, and I'm going to answer Mia's question because I said I will answer questions. I will interrupt what I'm talking about just to answer questions. All right. I'm really learning a lot from your videos. Thank you for sharing your talent. During a phone interview, what would you say as an opener so they will remember you? So, Mia, the short answer is you should join my Sales Velocity Academy. Got a lot of content there. But nonetheless, let me answer your question, because you want to become memorable as an opener so they will remember you. So the question is, how do you become memorable? All right, because that's it. And so, sometimes you'll only have 10 to 15 seconds in this opening conversation. So here's what I tell people. If you're talking to a certain business, because it really depends who you're talking to, Mia, what would be one thing that would make them go, huh, I didn't know that? So if I have an opener, I'm going to do one thing. One of the things I want to establish very quickly, Mia, one of the very first things I want to establish is that I understand your industry. I want to demonstrate that I understand your industry. I've worked in your industry, right, or companies in your industry, and then I want to give them, I'll just say, some type of data point to make them go, huh. So you can say, hi, my name's Mia Knox. I said, I work with several companies in the pool industry, right? And what we do is XYZ, which has resulted in companies growing their revenue by, data point, 35% on average. Where in the market, you're only going to see a 20% growth. By the way, anybody who knows their business, that's something memorable. I'm giving you an easy answer here, but what I'm saying is they need to know that you're part of their industry. You understand their business, that you've worked with other companies in their industry, and here's some of the results that they could get. And then I would say 35% where the industry average is 20. Mr. Customer, Mr. Potential Client, I said, are you seeing 35% growth in your area or your business? If they say, no, I'm not, it says, well, maybe this is why we need to get together or we can have a conversation. So this is one way of doing it very quickly, Mia. So I gave you the short answer, but again, in the course I have, in Sales Velocity Academy, Mia, I have the Sales Velocity Academy has something called predictable prospecting, value-centric selling, and I also talk about cold calls and voicemails. I got a course called The Perfect Voicemail, and you'll find more detail, but that's kind of the general gist. Cool. Great question, by the way. Great question. Back to that. Now, what did you guys write? I will have delta information from that. I don't know what that means, but I think I kind of know. I'll probably leave out some key memories. You're absolutely right. Distortions and delineations. Perfect. So now what happens is, yes, if the experience was something worth remembering. Interesting about it. Okay. You want to go there? Hey, Chad, what's happening? Thanks for joining the conversation, man. We're talking memory here. So if you had something happen on day one and somebody told you, hey, tell me about that memory, you went on a vacation. 6 months later, would that memory still be the same? What do you say, Chad? Would it be the same? And the answer is no. It's pure distortion. Somebody already mentioned it here. Let me give credit's due. Dean Hankey talked about distortion. And so what happens is, first of all, we don't have perfect memory. In other words, this is not like a digital recording where you can just grab that, cut, paste, and bring it over. You don't. So already there's going to be some missing data for my data scientists out there. There's going to be some missing data. But also, so you got missing data. We'll just put MD for missing data. But also, you have to keep in mind, I'll use the word emotion, but it's your sentiment. It's how you're feeling at the time. If you're in a good mood, you'll probably come up with some stuff. If you're not, you'll probably come up with another. It depends how you look at it. Also, context, the environment you're in. Believe it or not, if it's a business situation, it might be one context. If you're at a party, somebody asks you, it might be another conversation. And then what happens is something very fascinating. It's almost like when you watch TV, the old TVs used to have scanning lines, right? And the thing is, it scanned so quickly, like they were just scanning so quickly. But because they were scanning so quickly, your brain actually filled in the information, which made it look like a complete picture. That's exactly what happens to memory. It's imperfect already, and then all of a sudden you start, and I'll just use the word I for inserting information that really wasn't there. It could be subtle things. Like, maybe you went jet skiing, right? And in your brain, you thought it was in the afternoon, but really it was in the morning because your brain didn't remember that piece of information. You go, well, it's kind of light outside. I think it was early morning. So yeah, 10 a.m. So now, it now becomes a 10 a.m. where before it was a 1 p.m. deal. I'm being very simplistic. That's the first iteration. So already your new memory, M2, is already distorted. You can imagine what happens when you do another 6 months, right? You now develop memory 3. I should put that up here, right? Memory 3, and it becomes all distorted. So all this stuff becomes really distorted. They did a study, and I'm going to try to remember the numbers here. They asked people 2 weeks after 9/11. This is a really interesting study. They asked people 2 weeks after 9/11 where they were at and what was going on, after 9/11. For those who don't know what 9/11 is when the two planes hit the Twin Towers here in the United States. And I think it was September 11th, 2001. And so they asked 2 weeks later, and then what they did is they follow up with these same people, and I believe the time period was 3 years. 3 years later, it could be 5, okay? It's one of those, 3 or 5 years later, and about 30 to 40% of their story had changed. Remember, they recorded them. So by the time they asked them again, I believe the number is 30 to 40% of the story, let's call it almost half of their story had changed, but 30 to 40% of the story had changed over that time period, 3 to 5 years. And so that's how memory works, right? Now you probably wonder, where am I going with this? Trust me, this is the essence of why we can sell or go into business. So all of a sudden, we have to agree. Can we all agree now that memory gets distorted over time? And what happened at M1, by the time you get to MN, N being, 5 years later, whatever you want to put that N at, this memory of yours does not look like that one. It's totally distorted. You've added stuff, you subtracted stuff. Every time you're recalling, by the way, here's another interesting point about memory. If I recall it at M2, I'm going to recall pieces of information. And they call it assembling, because you're assembling all these pieces of information to create this memory again. Because the memory isn't just like, I remember this as a whole story. Different parts of your brain begin to collect to actually assemble the story. When you do it at M3 again, it begins to again assemble, pull stuff from your brain, not just the hippocampus where the memory's at, but just a lot of other places. And sure enough, it creates something different. Now, what does this have to do with you and selling? Sometimes, if we agree, by the way, do you buy into that memory changes over time? Do you buy into that? So if you buy into the fact that memory 1, by the time it gets to memory N, whatever that N is totally different, that's how memory changes. And we're not even aware that we're actually changing the story. You ever have, you ever tell a story and then somebody says, no, I was there and it didn't go quite down like that. That's not what really happened. And you're like, yes, it did. Again, 2 different memories, 2 different approaches. Why is this important to understand? Because, I'll give you an example. And I use this example a lot because it happened to me. So I was, I had a leaky faucet, right? A leaky faucet. Leaky faucet. Not that you need a visual for this, but I thought I'd give you a visual anyway, right? There's my leaky faucet in the bathroom downstairs, right? Now, if you're a real man, and you have a leaky faucet, what do you do? Got a leaky faucet, what do you do? I don't know about you. Here's what I did. I went to the kitchen and I got a bowl and I slid it under the cabinet, right? Because it's a sink. I opened up a cabinet. I saw the leak. I'm like, ugh. And so I just went to the kitchen, got a bowl, slid the bowl under, and problem solved. Told my wife, problem solved. It's all good. Bear with me. Hang in there with me. I'm telling you, I'm going to tie this back to memory and selling. I'm telling you, I'm giving you something you've never heard. So I realized after, let's say, a month or two, that I would have to go in there and take out the bowl every week or so, right? Every week I have to take out the bowl, empty it out, and then put the bowl back in. But I noticed that the leak was started to go faster now. So now it was leaking a little faster, right? Which means the bowl was getting filled faster. So if it's leaking faster, if you're a real man, what do? If you guessed a bigger bowl, you would be absolutely correct. A bigger bowl, right? So I got a bigger bowl. Now, you know what happened, right? A month later, whatever it is, I got tired of this, right? So finally I just said, you know what? I can't keep replacing the bowl, right? So I got to fix this thing, right? So I'm like, all right. Tell me if this has ever happened to you. Tell me if this has ever happened to you where you got to fix something and you're like, you got to get mentally psyched up to fix this thing. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like you got to mentally work up to it. Fellas, you know what I'm talking about. If you're married, you really know what I'm talking about because your wife gives you the honey-do list. Yeah, go do all these things. You're like, I got to build up to it, right? So I told my wife, I said, look, come Saturday, I'm going to fix that leak, right? Come Saturday, I'm going to fix that leak. And I remember Friday rolls around, I'm like, Has this ever happened? Like Friday rolls around, you're like, oh, I got to work on that thing tomorrow. I told her I'd work on it. I told him I'd work on it, whatever it may be. And I was like, I got to get this done, right? So you're like, oh, I got to mentally prepare. So sure enough, Saturday morning comes. I'm like mentally preparing. And then I said, all right, let me just go. So I drive over to Lowe's. It's like Home Depot, right? And I get all the pieces I think I need, right? And I come back. And then I drink a cup of coffee, and I mentally like, all right, before I get started, let me go get a cup of coffee. Let me get ready for this. By the way, if you feel me, if you know what I'm talking about, and that's ever happened to you, where you like, you got to warm up to get stuff, hit me with a one. Hit me with the one, like, or just put me, right? And so I got to warm up to this thing, right? And so what finally happens is, I said, all right, I'm going in, right? I'm going in, man. And so sure enough, I go in, right? I go in, and it's like, you know, all PVC piping, right? I'm just like, going through the whole thing. And man, and like that, within 10 minutes at most, it was fixed. 10 minutes, it was like fixed. And I'm like, and I'm looking at checking to make sure it's not leaking, right? 10 minutes, I'm like, yeah, right? And so sure enough, I'm like, it's not leaking. I'm like, where's everybody at? I want people to celebrate what I just did, right? Now here's a question to you. I said, what do you think is the first question that came into my brain? As soon as I fixed it, 10 minutes later, I fixed it. What's the first question that comes to mind? Come on, man. What's the first question that comes to mind? Hit me. And Dracula said, he goes through this every day. Love it, man. What was the first thought that went through my brain? 10 minutes. Bam, fix it. It's the first thing that went through my mind. What do you think it was? Victory? Celebration? Andronicus just killing it right here. Why didn't I do this right away? That was the exact thing that went through my brain, right? I'm like, why didn't I do this a while back? Great question. Ressa says, tell your wife. Ressa's back. Thank you, man. The first thing I told myself is like, why did I do this a while back? Instead of going for 2-3 months, swapping out the bowl. So my question is, tougher question now was, why didn't I do it? Chad got it. Reza, why didn't I do it? Why didn't I do this in the first place? Why do you think? It's easier than I assumed. Sanka, I got you on that. But what do you think was holding me back? Look at me and ask yourself, well, what do you think was holding him back from doing it in the first place? What do you think, man? This is important. I'm telling you, this is important. You got to get this one. I'm not going to give you the answer, man. Come on. Why do you think? Because this is going to answer a lot of your sales questions, a lot of business growth questions. I'm telling you, this is going to help you. Why not sooner? Yeah, why didn't I do it sooner? Why didn't I do it sooner? That's the question, Ahmad. You're writing, yeah, I'm asking, like, why not do it sooner? And I could tell Sanket knows. He's been studying my material. Yeah, and that is what? Perceived effort. That's absolutely right. 10 points, brother, 10 points, man. Because in my mind, let me go slow here because this is important. If you get this, man, you get it. Because in my mind, I didn't think I could do it. Why? Why didn't I think I could do it? Memory. Because it all comes down to this. See, here's Victor with his bald head, right? And I see this leaky pipe, right? Horrible picture, but there it is, right? And so what happened is, here's what your brain does. When it sees a problem, right? It sees a problem. That is a horrible picture, isn't it? Let's see if I can make this thing work. Okay, I think my nose is a little bigger than that. Anyway, you get the idea, right? Looks like an egg, I think. Uncomfortable. This is specific effort in mind. Good answers. Let me see. I'm not a plumber. Yeah, that was true, man. But that wasn't the answer I was looking for, but I love it. What happened was, when I saw the problem, there's the leaky faucet again, right? There's the leaky faucet. When I saw the problem, right, of the faucet, that's a faucet. And so when I saw this problem as a faucet, immediately my brain went back in time to my memory bank. It went back into my memory, right? And when it went back into my memory, what do you think it found? Immediately, it went back into my memory. And when it went back into my memory, what do you think it found? The easy answer is distortion. What type of distortion? See, my brain only recorded those things that are traumatic. You ever notice that? I forgot I think there's a name for it. It's like a somatic tagging. When something is traumatic, emotionally impactful, it has this emotion connected to it. It's almost like a harder fingerprint on your brain, something that you can't forget. Things that are not traumatic, you can't remember. But things that are traumatic, that had an emotional impact, are like deeper grooves in the brain. Because I always think of traces in your brain, how things are remembered. They're just electrical traces, right? But sometimes the memory is so hard that the electrical trace is deep that it will not go away. So if you suffered any type of trauma, you know what I'm talking about. And sometimes it's simple trauma, like you did something and you're embarrassed, or you tried something and you broke it and it cost a lot of money. These are traumatic small experiences. So what happens is my brain remembers this trauma, right, of working with pipes or leaks in the past. Now here's what's interesting. I've worked with pipes with leaks in the past, right? My brain told me, as I searched my database, as it compiled all this information, this memory for me, it said, you suck at it. That's what my brain said. You don't want to do that, you suck. There's no way you're going to make this work. That's my brain talking, by the way. You're not going to make this work. No way that's going to happen. You don't want to try that. You don't want to do that, right? And so what happens is, now that's what my brain is telling me. That's memory N, the latest memory I have. Now remember, here's the original memory, but my brain only recalls what? The last recalled memory. And if that memory is distorted in a very negative way, what happens is I reach back into my memory. This is important. Here it comes. I reach back into my memory, and then your brain is a prediction engine. I want you to hear that. Your brain is a prediction engine. Your brain's job is to assess and make a prediction. Is that dangerous? Should I do it? Should I go that way? Should I invest? Should I contact that client? Should I make that cold call? How is that cold call going to go? And it's going to predict the outcome. So what it does is your brain reaches back in the memory, and then it projects forward what's going to happen. We'll put that, it's going to create some type of image of what might happen, right? Let's call that a moment, right? That's a moment. So it's going to predict. So if this is negative, then every time you think of doing something, it's going to what? Forecast that it's not going to go well. It predicts that it's not going to go well. So when I saw the leak, I went back into my brain, and my brain said, every time you've tried that, Victor, it didn't work out. Every time you did something like that, it didn't work out. So forecast, you don't want to do that. So it already decided what the outcome was going to be. So I guess this should be better. This would be like an outcome O, right? It decided what the outcome is going to be. But really what happened was, let's just say that we were able to analyze this memory. Not only memory N, which is the final memory, but also really look at the original. Let's say we were able to do that. Here's what's interesting. Your brain, it cheats in a bad way sometimes. When you do something right, we don't recall that as often. But when you do something wrong, it's a harder imprint. Right? So when you do something right, it's to be expected. There's no emotional connection there unless it's something significant. The other thing is, if it's bad, guess what? It's really bad. And you remember that. It's an emotional impact. If you're a young guy, remember the day when you had to ask girls out to dance or something like that? Right? You remember when they said no most of the time. You rarely remember when they said yes, but you do remember when they said no. And that's where part of that rejection psychology comes in, because every time you ask a girl to dance, you remember that they said no. But if you were to zip back in time and we were analyzing, third eye, watching that whole scenario, what you might discover is that there were a lot of them that actually said yes. But your brain doesn't remember that because they weren't as negatively impactful. You know, they didn't have that emotional impact that you would remember. And so what's happening now is that we remember a lot of negative stuff, and we seem to almost like dampen the positive. If you're a parent, you're listening to me right now. If you're a parent, and let's say your kids are grown by now, right? Your kids are grown by now. And if they're grown, let me ask you a question. You probably remember times where you lost it. Maybe you yelled at the child, right? You yelled at your son or your daughter, right? Or you were just a little hard on them. And then you I'm such a horrible parent. I actually yelled at my child. You know what I mean? Or you said something or you did something, that just didn't go the right way. And all of a sudden, you're right, it's imprinting in the brain. And so what happens is, but here's what's interesting is that when you do something right, it's like the brain doesn't give you the same points that you do when you go negative. So, for example, if you take two instances where you did something right, you may have done one thing right, that was good, but you want one thing that was bad. Well, the brain's going to put a bigger box around this one and remember that more. You could probably do 100 rights, but the brain will remember that one bad, and that bad is what carries forward. And so sometimes we have to question our own thinking. I said, was it really that bad? And so what happened is when I did fix the plumbing, the reason I asked myself, I said, why didn't I do this before? But then the answer came back, well, that's because in the past, every time I've tried it, it never worked out. Now walk through this one slowly. In the past, I tried it and it never worked out. But what if I ask myself a different question? Well, okay, great, that didn't work out. But let's talk about other things I tried for the first time that did work out. Well, there were many of those, but see, my brain didn't bring that to the forefront. I had to force my brain to think about other things that I could do. So usually when we don't want to do something, it's that our brain is searching memory, not good, rejection, a lot of time, bad things, negative imprinting, and it forecasts the outcome that's not going to go well. Now, how does this, I'm sure you see the tie into sales right here, right? You see the tie into sales? Because if this is you and you have to make a cold call, right? That's an iPhone, right? You have to make a cold call, right? Then you're thinking, your brain immediately rushes back to memory. And it's going to find that the memory here is what? Every time I call, they're busy, they don't want to talk to me, that you forecast the outcome, it's not going to go well. It's going to be negative. So you don't make the call. That's what's happening in your brain. What your brain doesn't recall is all the times you did call and when you did close deals. This is why we have to kind of, when we talk about mindfulness, you hear that phrase thrown around a lot, mindfulness. Mindfulness is basically being aware of how your brain is thinking, of what your brain is telling you. Because it's the chatter up here. It's all this conversation you're having up here that you're trying to manage. There's a great book, if you want a different viewpoint on it. It's called Positive Intelligence. And what I love about this book is that it talks about Shirzad something is the gentleman's name, Shirzad something. What I love about Positive Intelligence, it talks about all the voices you have in your head. And he highlights a few of them that I can remember. One is the judge. The judge is always judging. But not only judging others, the judge is always judging you. It's like your inner voice says, why'd you do that? That was dumb. That's the judge, right? Then there's the vigilant part. The vigilant voice is like, oh, you might want to watch that. You might not want to try that. That's how, in other words, it scares you. And he identified like 9 different types of voices we have in our heads. And it is that chatter up there, that really screws us up. Do you know what I mean? It's that chatter up there that keeps us from doing certain things because we just remember always the negative and we never question the memory, especially if it's gone bad. It's what people tell themselves that determines whether they'll move forward or not. If you want to understand success, just listen how people talk to themselves. If there was a way to plug into somebody, do you know what I mean? It would be great. Let me see. You got hello from Dubai. I appreciate that. And again, we're just taking questions today. So print ads if you want to ask questions. And Shrutesh Godab. I think I got that right. You love my iPhone. I thought it was pretty good, man. Brian says, fear is a choice. That's the worst. We choose to believe our fears. Absolutely, man. It's so easy to go negative, right? It's so easy to believe the bad stuff that we push out the positive stuff. So the next time you find yourself, my point being here, the next time you find yourself in a situation where you're not doing something and you search your memory, you said, well, because in the past, it's never worked out. What you have to do is begin to question your memory. By that I mean is it really, I've done other things, I've been successful. Maybe I never done plumbing, got it right, but other things I've done and I figured it out. That's the mindset. Reading body language, I don't know what that means, Sanket. Reading body language and tonality, okay. Is rehearsing our sales pitch good for us? Make sure I got that question. Is rehearsing our sales pitch good for us? Yes, because you never want to practice on your client, right? So you should be able to, the grand fire expert, I should be able to wake you up in the middle of the night, say, give me your pitch, and you should be able to deliver your pitch. So yes. Let me see. U.S. currency is 7 times more than Indian currency, and I still find your monthly courses very reasonable. Love it, man. Sales Velocity Academy. It is. Look, man, I price small commercial. I priced a Sales Velocity Academy so that everybody can afford it, man. It really isn't affordable, and the value there is amazing. Again, I always remind people, it's $29.99 a month. You can sign up, and if after 2-3 months, which you can probably go through what you need in 2-3 months, just quit. For a $100 investment, 3 months, I mean, just quit after that. I don't take that personally, by the way. I don't want you to be on my program forever. I want you to get in there, get what you need, and then get out. Okay? So I love it when people come in, grab what they need, and leave. I'm okay with that. There's that wolf. Psychologically deconstruct our memories. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like you psychologically deconstruct or at least question them. I like to use that phrase, Reza. Question your memory. Like when you go, I'm not good at technology. You go, wait a minute, mindfulness, right? Am I? Well, I can work an iPhone. I can work a TV. Okay, that's technology. You know what I mean? You start to question it that way. How to come out of that negativity on cold calls? Well, again, when you look at that question right there, print ads, again, we just talk about the memory piece. So if you're going negative in, it's because something in your brain is telling you that, it's not going to go well because of some weird memory you have. So question the memory you have in the past. Now remember, when you cold call somebody, 2 things will happen. They'll listen to you or they won't. How's that? They'll listen to you or they won't. Let's go through them. Let's go through they listen to you. Great. I got an opportunity to present, close the deal. They don't listen to you. They just forget about you and you move on. But sometimes it's like we take that personally. So how do you get out of this negative? It's not personal. Remember, they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the product or service offering that you have. Big difference. It's not you. That's where the insecurity comes from, right? You think they're rejecting you. No, you're being an egoist if you think they're rejecting you. They're rejecting your pitch. They're rejecting your product or service or your pitch. So that tells me if they're rejecting my pitch, then I need to work on my pitch. It has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with my pitch. So keep those 2 separate, okay? How do we master delivery of pitch? Practice, practice, practice. One of the things I do is I walk around the house. You don't want to be here to see this, but I walk around the house rehearsing it and using the gestures that I typically use to tell a story. And so my family's used to it. They just kind of go, okay. What advice would you give to a fired sales ex telecoms in SME market? Find another company to work for. That'd be the easy answer, right? Go find another company to work for. On a serious note, though, I would ask myself, did they fire me? Did they fire me because they were downsizing because of market conditions? Because that's not your fault, right? That's not your fault. That's just, did they fire you because of management change? Did they fire you because of a merger and acquisition? These things are not within your control, Andronicus, right? That's not within your control. But if they fired you because, by the way, another reason they fired you is you couldn't sell their product. Why? Maybe it was a horrible product. That's not your fault. But if you got fired because you're not good at selling, right? Then I would say that's something you can control. If they fired you because you have a poor attitude, that's something you can control. So that's how I would look at it. That's how I would change my mindset. Did they fire me based on something I can control? If the answer is no, stay positive, because that's not, again, it's not your fault that the market changed, not your fault that these things happened, not your fault that we had a pandemic. It's not your fault that they have horrible products that keep failing. It's not your fault. But if they fired you for things you can control, like your attitude, your skill set, the tool sets, how to use different tools, things you can control, I can still remain positive. Just go out and learn those things, which is why I'm glad you're on this live stream. And again, Sales Velocity Academy might help you. So if it is skill set, go here. If it's, unfortunate circumstances because of the market, stay strong, brother. Keep going, okay? Cool. You're very welcome. Print ads, love it, man. Why are we scared of things getting out of control in sales or life? That's a good question. The easy answer is, which is not really an easy answer, is that we think that we can control things. It's an arrogance that we have. The brain wants to control things, wants to control its environment, wants to control people, because our brain hates uncertainty. Shrutesh, our brain doesn't like uncertainty. It makes us weird. It weirds us out. You know what I mean? This part of the brain just lights up when you are uncertain. So what you try to do is, if you think about it, Shrutesh, we create narratives, stories in our head to understand, what's going on in the world. For example, if a pandemic hits, there's several ways you can look at it. There's several stories you can tell yourself. One is that we're a global community, we're more interactive, and therefore these things happen. That's one narrative you can find. Another narrative would be is we are a country, or we as a global, country, a global village, always find solutions to this, so I'm not worried about it. Somebody will discover something. That's another narrative you tell yourself. Or if you have a religious bent to you, you go, this is God's will, whoever your God is. This is God's will, a way of reminding us that we need to take better care. You know what I mean? We all tell ourselves stories just to reduce our uncertainty. But the reality is we have no control. We're just a bunch of individual human atoms bouncing off each other on this thing called Earth, right? And so I think we get scared because we don't have any certainty, and there is no certainty. We have the illusion of control, but we have no control. But here's the irony, Shrutesh. As soon as you accept that you don't have control, you somewhat have more control. Because by not knowing that you can't control anything, you now have to find ways to prepare yourself for uncertainty. Does that make sense? Hit me up on that one, man. Let me see. I meant field sales executive in the telco market. Sorry. So let me go back to the first part. You're confusing me. What advice would you give a field sales? Oh, you weren't fired. Good man. Field sales telecom in the telco market. Sorry. No worries, man. Andrelica is almost the same thing. Do you know what I mean? With the exception of, more on the process side, is that you got to learn how to sell. I'm telling you right now, any person that can do three things. One of my live streams, I talked about the challenger sale, and if you can, if you can do three things, if you know your product, here's your competitor, right? And then here's your client, right? Who you're trying to sell to, right? Right here. Sorry, let me remove that. Let me just take that out. Okay. So this is your product. That's your competitor product. That's your client. Over here, I talked about this. I'll just repeat again. You're at a disadvantage. Your competitor has something your client wants, but you don't have it. Here, in the middle, you both have it. We call that parity. So you don't win. But over here, you have something your client wants, but your competitor doesn't have. This is where you have to learn what that message is. That little triangle right there is three things that you know that you can do better than your competitor that your client wants, that your competitor doesn't have. If you can figure that story out, then you become better at positioning your product or service. That's the short answer. So, by the way, on that one, I would also ask you to, on the Sales Velocity Academy, check out the value-centric selling. It's how to create value. Talk about break-even points, total cost of ownership, things that were really tangible, that mean something to a client. Yesterday, Andrelikas, I'll leave on this. I was being interviewed by a gentleman over in the UK, and he said something, and he reminded me of some data points. He said less than 10% of executives would take a second meeting with a salesperson. Less than 10% of executives would take a second meeting with the salesperson. Why? Because they found no value in the conversation. Think about that. They found no value in the conversation with the salesperson, so less than 10% will take a second meeting. My question to you is, are you having valuable conversations? Are you asking quality questions? And again, it's a longer answer, but I got great courses that'll help you do that, man. So great question, though. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. All right, Reza Wolf is back. Improve the situation within our circle of control and influence. That's all you can do, right? You try to control what you can, but in reality, there's not a lot you can control. Let me see. The Grand Fire Expert is asking people what they want a good strategy. I ask this because people tell you they want something and then you deliver them they don't want it. How do we work this out? The reality is people sometimes don't know what they want. Here, let me phrase it differently. People think they know what they want, but they don't know what they need. People think they know what they want, but what they really don't understand is what they need. And that's where you as a salesperson have to tell them what they need. Some people say, I want to be able to do this. And then if you're an expert, you go, no, I can see why you want that, but here's what you need to do because this is more important. If you do this, this will take care of that. That's what they're looking for, guidance. It's like and to prove my point, it's like when they do surveys. When they ask people a question, you'll get one answer. But then when you do a private survey, you'll get a totally different answer. Studies have shown this over and over again. What people say publicly and what they do privately are two different things. So if you're in sales, you have to know what they need. You know what they want. But if you can understand what they need to help them with their business, then you're selling, man. So that's a great question, by the way. Insecurity is a mortal's chieftain enemy. Chiefest enemy. Macbeth, William Shakespeare. You guys are too educated for me. Jerome, says, Victor, am I late? You're approximately 54 minutes and 46 seconds late, but you're still welcome, brother. All right. Let me see. Bilal, again. All right, Victor. The objection. I need to talk to my wife. I handled it by telling him if we could get his spouse involved in the call, to which he replied, I can talk to my own wife. What did I do wrong? Yeah, never want to do that one. Well, first of all, phrasing is always important here, Bilal, right? So I don't know the situation, but let me just give the broad aspect. Let's say I'm selling to a residential, a house, right? Where typically a husband and wife will be involved, right? And so if I'm trying to qualify the opportunity, I'm going to ask, by the way, besides you, who else will be making a decision? Would that be your wife? And they're going to say, he'd probably say, yeah, she needs to be here to make a decision. I said, will she be there that day we're going to meet? And let's say he says, yes, great, I look forward to seeing you both there. But let's say he says, no, she's not available. Then I would say something like this. Based on what I want to show you, I think it would be great to have her there. So can we just shift a date, one date, that fits her schedule? What date would that be? If we could get you both there, what day or time would that be for you? And now he has to give you a date or time, right? And you're trying to get the person there. So that's how I would do it. It's all phrasing, it's all wording. But good question though. Way to go, man. Good question. So I did something here and I can't. Wow, you can expand these things. Okay, that's kind of cool. So philosophical. Shutesh, bang, you got it. This one is Sanket. Some people act as if they are real decision maker, but they're not. How to identify who's the real buyer in B2B? Beautiful question, Sanket. Beautiful question, man. You've asked me some okay questions, but I'm putting this one under the beautiful column, man. Well done. So the answer is, excuse me, I got something right there, man. That's a good question. The answer is, Sanket, to test somebody's ability, if they're a decision maker or not in a B2B scenario, I ask them for something. For example, he says they're a decision maker. Great. Because then I can say something like this. Besides you, who else will be making decisions? He says, I'll make all the decisions. You're like, Okay. So when somebody says, I make all the decisions, first of all, more likely than not, especially if it's a complex sale, right? There are other decision makers. So I said, I'll tell you, I try to set up a meeting, I meet with this guy, this influencer, right? And I said, I would really like to get your management on board. Can we set up a meeting next week with your top management team so we can review this? That's one way and see what he says. By the way, just listen to how they respond and watch very carefully. Or how about this one? No, I'll make a decision. I said, so if I get a proposal to you, since it's your decision, when do you think you'll have that back to me? An answer? A day, 2 days? Right? Because he's a decision maker. And then now I'm asking, when will you have it back? And so what you got to do is find little ways of testing, getting them to give you something back. Whether it's a decision, another time, another meeting, whatever it may be, try to get something. And if they can't deliver on that, they're probably not the decision maker. Because when somebody says they're the decision maker, I said, great. So you're the only person involved in making a decision. So great. He says, yes, I am. So if I can walk through this 45-minute presentation, show you the value, then you're in a position to make a decision. Correct? Now you have to say yes or no. So you don't have to speak to anybody. Great. Let's talk. But if there is, again, he goes, no, I still have to talk to my management team. I still have to talk to my boss or clear it with my boss. I said, great. If at the end of this presentation you like what you see, can we set up with a meeting with the boss for next week? And then listen to what they say. And also watch if they hesitate. It's all in the tone. The thing is, in selling, one of the things you have to develop, Sanket, is the ability to split your brain. By that I mean is part of your brain is talking, right? Having the conversation. But there's another part of your brain that's in surveillance mode. By surveillance mode, I mean you're watching body language if they get uncomfortable. You're watching, their expressions, these little micro expressions, right? And you're listening for tone. How confident was that? How sure did they sound? And if you can begin to do that, you'll be able to detect people. It's like, you can develop a real good BS detector. Sanket, I hope you know what BS means over there. I'm just messing with you, man. Andronicus, use Victor's value trinity. That's Reza's giving you some advice. Yes, I would suggest that as well. You're very welcome, my friend. Having a web meeting and doing sales is difficult. Kamlis Sawant, just joined us, I take it, man, or you've been hanging out with us for a while. It's the first time I've seen your name, man, so welcome to the live stream. Having a web meeting and doing sales is difficult. Well, they're both one, right? You're in a web meeting trying to do a sale. On that one, I did a program, Kamlesh. It's there, right here on the Sales Velocity Academy. It's called No Touch Selling, which is, it only tells you, not only tells you what technology to use to sell at a distance, but also tells you what to look for. And in there, I cover body language, facial expressions, and even what they say and how they say it to basically detect whether this is going your way or not. I also talk about, how do you know somebody's with you? So here's a simple example. When I'm talking to somebody via web, like you guys right now, like I'm just looking at a camera on my side of the studio, right? One of the things I try to do with you guys, if you haven't noticed, I try to engage you as much as possible, which is why I want to take your questions or say, hey, give me a one, type this in, tell me where you're from, all that stuff. I'm getting engagement because I'm trying to keep you guys involved. This is my thing about keeping people involved. In other words, we have a conversation, let's do some interaction. Conversation, interaction, conversation, interaction. My question to you is, in your meeting presentation, if it's a sales presentation, are you doing that? Conversation, interaction, conversation, interaction. And with each conversation, interaction, with each cycle of that, you got to ask yourself and measure. It's a gut thing right here, right? It's head, heart, and gut. You got to say, are they following me? Are they with me? And depending on how they interact with you, gives you an indication whether they're with you or not. That's the biggest tip I can give you without going into the details of the course. So if you go into the Sales Velocity Academy, again, it's called No Touch Selling. Check it out. But if you got them going with you, then you're moving towards the glide path. You're moving them closer towards the sale. So let me know what you think of that answer. And I'll go back. This one, how to handle power base. Most of the prospects in power base expect high discounts. How to handle that? Mode Moin. Eminem, I'm just going to call you Eminem. Hey, can you tell me what you mean by how to handle power base? I don't know if I know what that means. I kind of think I do, but I don't want to guess at it. Hit me back, okay? Reza, got to go? Hey, man, thanks for stopping by. Dig that. I'm loving this live stream. Is NLP a good to use in sales? I'm talking about values and criteria rather than features and benefits. Years ago, if you'd have asked me the question about NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, I would have said, it's a crock. Don't bother, don't waste your time. But what's happening is that in many cases, what's happening now is they have these fMRI machines, Grandfire, and they actually can look at your brain, what's happening inside your brain when you're asked certain things or you're shown certain things. And a lot of the stuff that NLP people talk about actually do kind of work. I'm not saying all of it, but they do kind of work. There's some aspects of it that do kind of work. Some of it's too cheesy. Some of it's like, you're like, I don't think that's going to work. So my suggestion to you is read it and learn. Like I've read NLP books and, things like framing, anchoring. I'll just use these words up here. Things like framing, right? They talk about framing. They talk about anchoring, right? They talk about priming, These are interesting concepts that are in NLP, but you also find them in every influence and persuasion book. So there is some good content there. So I always say, man, if it's helping you, go read it, man. Like I said, read it and see what you absorb and get back to me on that, all right? Jesus Enriquez, do you have material and sales velocity for building your own thing? I really like the topic you just did last time. Which one was that one, Enrique? Let me know what that is. For building your own thing. I assume it's building your own business. If it's building your own business, the answer is no. Sanket, cool. You like that answer? Amadi Suleiman, PNL. I don't know what that is. Or is it NLP? And Neuro-Linguistic Programming. One question before I leave. Last question for me. At what point in your sales career did you have the eureka moment, I get it moment? I don't think you ever do, man, because every sale is so different. I know you don't want to hear this answer because it's like, that's not great. Because you know what? Some sales will come easy. Like there's been times, Andralikos, when, customer, I deal with the customer and I'm like, he's not going to buy. But I still go through the motion, but I do minimum effort, right? Minimum effort. And then there's other customers, I deal with them, I do maximum effort. I bend over backwards, do everything for them. You can guess which one closes most often, right? The minimum effort person, because they know what they want. The maximum effort person typically screws me sometimes. a lot of times rather. And so I don't think I ever had a eureka moment, but the closest thing to a eureka moment is when you feel comfortable, and this is depending on which company you're in and how well you know the products and the market. There's a point in your presentations where you feel comfortable with the product, you feel comfortable with the client, what they need, and what's going on in the market, those three things. And when you present, you're able to ask questions. So I have eureka moments when clients ask me tough questions and I know the answer. So we'll call them micro eureka moments. And I think that's what really sales is. If you know your product, you know your client's business, and you know the market, and you can have that conversation, you feel good. I'm not going to call it a eureka moment like, yeah, well, I got sales. No, you'll never get there because people are too different. And situations are very different. And the more you involve people and the more people involved in that decision-making process can make your sale go left or right. So there isn't a eureka moment, but there are moments when you, as a salesperson, feel very confident in your ability to do your best. Understand the product, understand the client, understand the market. And then when you lose a sale, even knowing all those three things, when you lose a sale, you know it wasn't me, it was something beyond my control in many cases. So that's the closest thing to a eureka moment. Known context. You're going to make me go all the way back up and relook at your question. M&M. How to handle power base. Most of the prospects in the power base expect high discount. And these would be, now go back, known context. Well, everybody expects a discount. You know what I mean? And the thing is, there is, if we can use your phrase, power base. Like, look, I'm telling you, if you're talking price and discount, it's because, one, you have a commodity product. If you have a commodity product, you'll always be talking price and discounts, and everybody's offering it, so why buy it from you? Why are you different? And if you can't differentiate yourself, M&M, you're screwed, right? But let's say you don't sell commodity product. You sell a business-to-business complex product that maybe is a little different. If people are asking for discounts, that's because you're not positioning the product right. So that's the part. You've got to be able to position the product right. The reason people ask for discounts is because you didn't sell the value, right? Because you could push back. I talk about a gentleman by the name of Mac Hannon who said, discounting is the ignorance tax you pay for not knowing the value of your product. Let me say it again because this is really important. Mac Hannon wrote the book, Consultative Selling. Paraphrasing what he said, discounting is the ignorance tax you pay for not knowing the value of your product and being able to communicate it to your clients. And I'll leave you with this. By the way, in the Sales Velocity Academy, I have a course called Discounting Countermeasures. Like, how do you avoid discounting, right? How do you avoid discounting? And I got like 7 or 8 ways you can avoid discounting or push back on the discounting. But in the end, you got to do it. Comlish agrees. Beautiful, man. Cool. Power-based, known contacts. Oh, so now your power-based is like known contacts, like family and friends. Yeah, family and friends always want discounts. Do you know what I mean? But I think it's how you present. I still say it's attitude. I said, look, love to give you a discount. In fact, I would use it as a reason. I said, look, you're my family. You've been my dearest friend. There's nothing more I'd like to do is give you a discount. I said, but if I do, we're losing money, and I can't do that. But if you're really my friend, you wouldn't ask for a discount. You'd just buy the product. Something like that. I'm just messing with you, man. But I know what you mean, though. Right here. Neuro-linguistic program to evaluate the conversation of speech during a negotiation can be a good tool. Yes, it can. Like I said, I'm with you. I'm not for or against, right? I'm always like, there's always something good you can learn from something. Like even neuro-linguistic program, there's always something you can learn. And like I mentioned, these 3 things, framing, anchoring, priming, there's some great content that you can actually deal with in there. So yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. Let me see. What's important to you when you look for an impeccable salesman or woman who could make some great money for your company or for someone else? We were having this conversation in this podcast I was telling you about, and we talked about one, coachability. That was a big one we agreed on in this podcast, coachability. And the way they test coachability, let's just go with coachability. Let's say Grandfire, GFE. So GFE, if I'm going to hire you, right, and I say, look, this is a product we're selling. We're selling, the gizmo. We're selling this gizmo, right? He says, how would you present that product to me, right? And then you would do it like a 2-minute presentation, right? Or I ask you, hey, do an icebreaker. Tell me, stand up there, give me a 2-minute presentation about yourself. You would give me a 2-minute presentation about yourself. And then I would say, GFE, I like your presentation, but here's what I want you to try to do. There were a couple of things I would change. You should do this, you should do this, you should do that, and try to incorporate this and that. And then wait 5 or 10 minutes. I said, you know what? Hey, go back up there and do that icebreaker thing again. Do your speech again. And, just with some of the changes we talked about. And if the person is able to adapt, incorporate, use some of the tools or some of the suggestions you gave them, then you know that they're coachable. And that's who you want. That's one key characteristic in a salesperson that's viable, okay? Good question, Matt. Very good question. All right. Irie, I think I got that right, or Irie. What's the best approach? Best way to approach customers when trying to cross-sell them something? Obviously, asking, would you need the product doesn't work. When you're trying to cross-sell, all right, so cross-sell means, let's be clear so we have our words right. So upsell is I try to sell you more of something, like if you have a single burger, I try to sell you a double burger. That's an upsell. A cross-sell is you bought a burger and now I want you to buy some fries. That's a cross-sell. It's a different product, right? So, one, you should know already ahead of time what a good cross-sell is. So for example, Irie, and then you tell me if I'm right, you give me feedback on my answer to you. If I'm selling you product A, and that's what I sell all the time, I typically know that if I sell you product A, I'm also going to be able to sell you product B, C, D. Because people who bought, I always buy B, or always buy C, or always buy D, or all of them, right? So what I would do if I were you is, as I'm talking to my clients, I'm trying to close this sale, but I'm also going to ask questions about this. For example, I'm trying to sell you a computer, right? What goes with a computer? What's a good upsell for a cross-sell with a computer? I can sell you the bag, right? One. I can sell you some cloud service, right? As opposed to a hard drive, right? So bag, cloud service. How about some protection plan for your screen, or some type of protection, or training? Like when I go to when I bought my Mac, they wanted to sell me some training for some of the software. So these are 3 products that I could cross-sell them on, right? And so when I'm talking to them about a computer, I'm going to ask them, by the way, do you travel a lot? Now, where's that one going? The bag, right? By the way, what type of work do you do? Well, I do a lot of video production and graphics. I'm moving them towards the cloud already, right? Because that's where that one's going. On this one, I said, what are you going to do with this? Well, I'm just starting out, and I'm just starting out. What programs are you going to use? Well, I think I'm going to start with something like Photoshop or something like that. Now I'm moving towards training. Because when I closed this deal, I said, by the way, you mentioned you were going to work with Photoshop. I said, we have this great training program, blah, 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 blah. By the way, you mentioned that you have a lot of graphics that typically, takes up a lot of content or a lot of memory storage. And if you add a lot of memory to this, that's going to cost you a lot. We also have a cheaper version using the cloud. We have this application. You only pay so much a month. Would that be of interest to you? Back here, by the way, since you travel a lot, we got these new bags in. I just want you to check these out because it makes carrying your data that much easier. See what I mean? See how I'm asking questions, knowing what I'm going to cross-sell them later on. So hopefully that helps. All right. So this one, the Sales Velocity Academy is awesome. I will recommend it to anyone who wants to become a master salesperson. I'm telling you, if you know how to sell, listen to me, if you learn how to sell, and I say this in every live stream, you will always have a job. You will always have a job, okay? So keep that in mind. You will always have a job. How do you conduct, hold on one second. My wonderful wife is bringing me coffee right now. Shelly, do you want to come on screen? She said no. So anyway, Starbucks, bam, that's how it is. All right, how do you conduct an interview if you're looking to hire a salesperson? So Brian, BC, we already talked about one of the things you look for is coachability. So, I typically want to put them to 3 or 4 people to talk to, right? Because you get different perspectives, right? If it's a big company, maybe you want somebody to test his technical ability. Another person may want to test his presentation abilities. So maybe when you're having them go through people, say, I want you to look at this specific thing. Like, I like to test on presentation skills. Because every salesperson I have and I hire has to go do a presentation about our product or service. So I would say, hey man, here's your phone. I said, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to walk out of the room. When I come back, I want you to give me a 10-minute presentation on why this phone is so valuable to you. 10-minute presentation on the value of this presentation. And I would leave the room. 10 minutes later, I come back. Let's see the presentation. And that tells you a lot of what they can do in 10 minutes. You get to see how they talk. You get to see how they present, right? And again, you can do several things like this. And maybe you can walk out and I'll give you half an hour to use slides also. Give them 30 minutes. I want to see people in action. Do you know what I mean? I want to see them present. So that would be the one thing I would look for, definitely, man. So, you've helped me a lot in bringing and upping my game, Victor. I'm a big fan. Meter Roy, thank you very much, man. That is so cool of you to say that. All right, GFE is back. GFE, you write a lot of stuff. Let me see. Okay. Framing and priming is good, but anchoring is kind of when I try to implement it. It's kind of when I try to implement. I mean, most people become book salesmen and they know 1,000 sales, but they cannot implement it. Any ideas? I don't try to learn 101 sales. I've talked about this in the past, man. It just doesn't work, man. You have to come up with your ultimate sales close, right? Let me have some of this coffee. It smells too good. Wish you were here with me, man. Share some coffee. And if you're from the Middle East, man, we would be hookahing together right now with some coffee and tea. So on the anchoring piece, most people become book salesmen and they know 1,000, which again, you don't need 1,000 techniques, man. Anchoring works when you know how to use anchoring. You know what I mean? Priming works when you know how to use priming. I mean, these things do work. Framing definitely works. And again, without going into too much detail, check out the Academy. There's some stuff in there, but all this stuff you can learn. And it's very subtle in how you do it. For example, one of the things I use, I'll use anchoring. Let me pick one, anchoring. That's always a interesting one, right? So I believe in the anchoring price early. I anchor price early, not late in the presentation. So for example, GFE, if this is me doing the presentation and I got 45 minutes to do the presentation, let's say it's a B2B situation, I drop price early. Like somewhere in here, I drop price. I do. I drop price early. I don't wait to the end because what happens is if you wait to the end, they're just focused on the price. Like, well, how much is this going to cost? How much is this going to cost? By letting them know early what it's going to cost, I drop price. I can drop an anchor. Or I can drop a range of prices, right? It's going to cost you between, X and, double X. Now I just framed my pricing. I use framing and anchoring at the same time. And now they're primed. They know what to expect. And now they're willing to listen. And again, I got a great course on that where you can talk about pricing and framing and all that good stuff. But yes, these are powerful things. You don't need 100 closes, man. So again, Chad said something about ideas. Sorry, you must have hit that click button too early, man. All right. Let me see what this says. And I'm going to get off in about another 10, 15 minutes here. Sell ideas, reinforce with features of product and benefit service. Yeah, it's almost like, you want to sell enough of it. People, again, they're trying to solve a problem. And your product or service is aimed to solve that problem. How do we do that? Features, benefits are great. Let's push it deeper and go with the advantage in the game, what you're going to get from that. And I'm sure that's what you meant, Chad. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Matt. You're absolutely right. Let's see. Whoa, that's a lot. The turtle on a post. That picture never gets old, man. Victor, as always, you keep dishing out wisdom and knowledge. Much appreciate taking the time for us. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Thank you very much, man. You do the same, man. You do the same. Okay, Mari Soliman. Let's see. What should we sell in the first place to a new customer? Service, product, or truth? Service, product, or truth and empathy, the invisible stuff, if you know what I mean. Should this be the best value as we see as a value merchant should sell? So I think what you're asking me is, you got to build some credibility at the beginning, right? So let's say it's a B2C sale. I've been doing B2B. Let's do a B2C. Let's say I go to a retail store to buy something. And I always give the story about the time where I went to buy a drone. And I asked the guy a couple of questions. He didn't know what a drone was, or he knew what a drone was, but he didn't know how to operate drones or what was the difference between one drone and another. And immediately he lost all credibility. Or, as you just pointed out, the empathy piece. So we're going to get our wood floors down. We're going to put some wood floors down. I got this young guy, told the story. He approaches something saying, this guy probably doesn't know anything. But yet, we said a couple of things, and he's asking us all kinds of questions, trying to understand what we're trying to do, really understand empathy, empathize with what we're trying to do. And I'm like, based on his answers, see, his answers transmitted how much he knew. His answers basically told us, I know what I'm talking about. I know how to do this for you. You're in good hands. And the product and the service was after the fact, right? Because we're talking to an expert and it says, no, it's going to get done. Here's what you want to do. Recommended wood here. Here's the type of service we're going to give you. It's going to be done this time frame. So being able to connect, empathize, but also educate. Remember my universal sales formula: empathy, educate, empower. Empathize, understand them, educate them, give them information they don't have to make them feel comfortable, and then empower them, give them options to make a decision. That's the trick, man, right there. Chad said trust and value. Dude, can't argue with that one, man. That'll never go away, man. I'm in the t-shirt manufacturing business, so how can you differentiate myself from my competitor? Very tough, man. That's a very tough industry. So I'm not even going to touch that one because that's a longer conversation how you would do it. I would go with, again, everybody's offering quality when it comes to even the actual printing. So this is definitely, when you're in this type of business, this is a relationship business. And number two, it's a delivery business, right? So quality and delivery are the two big things that are going to drive this type of business. But again, this type of customer will come to you for pricing and then will leave if they get a better price. That's what's tough about that business. So it's that's like red ocean business right there, man. So that's a tough one. Victor Manish Junagadi. I think I got that right. Hi, Victor. How to handle the rejection when decision makers corrupted and spread negative feedback about my product? When the decision maker, you got to have more than one ally in the company. That's the only way to do it. I've dealt with this in a lot of times. Sometimes these decision makers have hidden agendas, right? Sometimes they have another manufacturer paying them on the side, if you know what I mean, which is why they'll spread that negative stuff. The thing is to find alternative champions within a company. I'm assuming this is like a B2B situation. I've had clients in the past where they were getting paid by the other vendor under the table, right? And so it was very hard to get past him. But so what I started doing was almost like building a coalition of people who worked around him, but not directly for him, to kind of combat all the negative stuff he was saying. And eventually, in many of these deals, we actually got in. We didn't get into a few of them, but more likely than not, we would win. But it takes longer, right? It's just so exhausting because it doesn't have to be that way, but they just make it exhausting. So, man, I feel your pain, brother. Do our looks and style impact how the customer makes a decision when I'm selling? Absolutely. Short answer. You better look pro, man. They judge you. People say they don't judge people book by its cover. They do, right? They're assessing at all times. Oh, this look. Christos Nicolaou. This is a big one, man. Holy buckets. You just wrote a whole journal in here, man. I can't even fit it on my screen here. You're killing me. Oh, crap, I lost that. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can. I went too small. Great family picture, man, but you're killing me here with the graphic. Oh, right up. All right. I'm trying to figure out the software. Hold on. Let me see. I have a customer. I'm just going to leave it right there. I have a customer which I've been trying to close since January this year. The first one, everybody else read that with me. First round. An offer improvement. Oof, I don't know if that was a good idea, but I know what you were trying to do, though. You're trying to get it off the dime, right? First round was an offer improvement. For those of you wondering what that is that you gave him a better deal. You sweetened the pot, a little better deal. Then COVID and the loss of momentum, and now a better offer. And although he said, great, let's do that, then disappeared for about 2 weeks now. I'm following up every 3 or 4 days with a call, no response. What's there? Okay, so here's what I think one of your biggest mistakes was. And again, I'm judging from a distance, so I could be totally full of crap. I could be totally wrong here, man. When you did the first round and you made an offer improvement, just listen to this advice, man. This advice is going to save you money in the long run. When you make an offer, you never make an offer of improvement without a commitment of some sort. So, for example, if the person says, you know what, if we had this at this price, I think we can do this. Now, so two scenarios. You tell me which one you did. Now, one is, this is where a lot of people go wrong. So, Christoph, and again, I'm not criticizing, we're just talking, okay, Christos? So, here's what may have happened. Scenario number one. Let's go with scenario number one. Scenario number one, you wanted to move the deal. You wanted to move the deal, right? So, you made an offer, okay? This is you made an offer, right? That's scenario number one. Scenario number two is the client requested a better deal, right? A better deal, right? So now let's break them apart, because you gotta slice and dice this stuff. Since I can't see you, we can't talk. In the first one, if you offered them a better deal because you wanted to move the deal forward, you offered them the deal, then you shot yourself in the foot, because the client never asked for it. And because you gave them a discount, they're going, it didn't have any value for them, right? Never give something when nobody asked for it. I know what you're thinking, but I thought if I offered him a better deal, he would move off the dime, because typically it isn't money, right? So this, you should never have offered in the first place if they didn't ask for it. Two, let's say the client asked for a better deal in order to move the deal. I would have said, now you ask for something in exchange. So if the client says, Victor, if I had better pricing, if I had better delivery, if I had better whatever it may be, I said, I think we can do this deal. I would respond back, because he would say, well, can you give me some better pricing? I said, what type of pricing do you think you need for us to close this deal right now? Is it 5% improvement, 7% improvement? That's one way of handling it. Or I would just say this. I said, I can give you better pricing. I said, the thing is, I want him to give me a number. Because if I say 5, he's going to say, not good enough. 10, not good enough, right? I said, what number would you need for us to make this deal happen right now? In other words, we can sign a deal tomorrow. And then now you wait for him to give you an answer. And if he says, Victor, if you can do 5%, I'll say, if I have the authority, I say, the 5% is done. I'll send over the contract tomorrow, and we'll get started. Does that sound good? Shake my hand, boom, it's done. Notice I asked for something in return. If you're going to ask me for a discount, I'm going to ask you for something in return, right? So I always practice that philosophy. When somebody asks you for something, you ask for something in return. For example, Victor, can you give me better pricing? I'll tell you what, I'll give you better pricing. In fact, I can probably knock this down by 20%, but the only way I can justify that is that instead of signing a 1-year contract, you sign a 2-year contract. That allows me to recoup some of my costs that I'm giving you off my discount. Does that work for you? Right? And I'm always asking for something in return. Let me know if that helps a little bit. Brian, thank you for stopping by. Appreciate it. Let me see if I can blow these things back up. Sorry, I'm just trying to work the system here a little bit. Thank you. So you ignored my chat. You're a jerk. You lost a long-time subscriber. Hemingway, I just got here. Anyway, so this guy's, dude, you got to see my stream. I'm not ignoring people, so I'm sorry, man. So you ignored my chat. You're a jerk, Sorry to hear you say that, man. That's too bad. But anyway, I hope you come back, man. Wasn't doing it on purpose. Wasn't intentional, man. Wasn't intentional at all. Which days and times do you go live? I always enjoy learning from you. Dennis, I have none, because then people call me a jerk if I don't show up to one. So anyway, why people get mad? People just, man, I don't know. What techniques would you use in selling radio and media ads? Joe, it's such a broad question. What I would do is, it's just such a tough question, because it would depend on the pitch. So that's just too big of a question, man, to answer here. So I'm not ignoring you, just too big of a question. Victor, I'm in complex sales. Hold on, let me see if I can shrink this one here, man. I'm having trouble with this software today. Victor, I'm in complex sales. I'm still using discovery stage, finding customer challenges, but you highlighted using techniques like insight, clarity, and educate them. Right, correct. So then you say, will this end up customer feeling we never understood them well before? No. See, it's the thing. By the way, Victor Tan, love your first name. Victor, on the last one, we talked about this one. This is where I talked about how somebody brought up about spin selling. Can you still use situation, problem, implication, need? The thing is, customers want you to arrive already understanding them. And I'm not saying fully, but let's say 90% there. So your presentation, you're getting there saying, I've done enough research. I've talked to enough people in this industry and people like you. So let me and I would do something like this, Victor. I would say, Mr. Customer, having studied your business, having worked with customers in your space, I'm going to highlight 3 things, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, or I'm on target, or I missed something. One of the biggest challenges you're facing is this. The second challenge you're facing is this. The third one is this. Does that sound right? And if the customer says, Yes, exactly. You got it, Victor. And then if they say something like this, yeah, that's about right. Now, when they say, yeah, that's about right, I would say, it sounds like I missed something. Can you help me out? What did I miss? See how that's a conversation, Victor? That's how you do it, man. That's how you do it. All right. Have you ever seen a salesman, a saleswoman, and you noticed their sales pitch? You were almost captivated by the pitch. How was it like? It was good content, man. I mean, the simple answer there, GFE, is just that it's great content that you sit there and you can, it's concise, to the point. They're chopping, you know what I mean? And they're telling you things that you go, huh, didn't know that. Wow, okay, that's different. Wow, I didn't know that was happening in the market. Things that make you go, wow. And you can tell that they're moving along at a certain speed, a certain cadence. So keep that in mind. That's how you do it. Ed Donahue. My friend, if this is the Ed Donahue, I think it is. So Ed represents a very, very large company. He sells he is the president of sales of a very, very large company. Just stumbled on the new format, digging it. Give me a call when you finish up. Let's do some stuff. Love it. For those tuned in, Victor is the best of the best. Thank you, Ed. So Ed has like I said, it's a big company. I don't want to violate any trust here, but I've worked with Ed's teams over the last maybe 5-7 years, Ed. Does that sound about right? And so, love to do something with you again, man. So, it's been a while. We'll catch up. I'm sure business is going exceptionally well still. Let me see. Ed also adds this. I work with over 1,000 salespeople. Told you it was a big company. And most are Victor Antonio disciples. Triple cheeseburger, anchoring, framing are table stakes for our team. In other words, all the stuff we talked about today is what they're using. And again, all this stuff is real and can be used in a tangible way. Thank you, Ed. Appreciate you stopping by, Matt. Thank you. I saw you dancing on an Instagram video. Oh, man, it's going to get worse in a couple of days. Tonight, we're launching this virtual conference for 2 days. And I'll post it on Instagram, but it's me riding a bike to the event. You got to check it out. But yeah, dude, I love dancing. Come on, Spanish people, Puerto Ricans, we dance. Salsa, merengue, reggaeton, whatever we got, right? Let me see. Victor, any ideas on how to win back customers who left because of miscommunication between them and the PM or the product manager? Hey, Trevor, there's a book. I talked about it last time, Trevor. I don't know if you were on the call. Trevor, yeah, I'm going to have you just believe me on this one, okay? I want you to go out and get the book. It's called The Expansive Sale. Written by a guy named Tim Reister. I think it's somebody else. I don't remember the second author. But what's interesting about this, that's my little dog over there just playing. But what's interesting about the book, there's a chapter in there that talks about how to apologize and in what sequence to apologize to an actual client. Do you know what I mean? And it gives you almost like the messaging format. Just that chapter alone. I don't care if you read the rest of the book, even though the rest of the book is really good. But that part about apologizing to a customer, I've never seen anybody describe it and give you a roadmap for talking about it that way. So check out the book, man. I think you're going to love it, man. All right. Let me see. Can you get a short overview of sales velocity, what we can expect from it, and how will it help us? So the Sales Velocity Academy, so it's really, this is how I added up really simple for you. Ashke Wadhavani, kind of close. Ashke, so here's the sales velocity equation. If you want to measure your sales and how much you're selling, count the number of opportunities multiplied by your close rate, multiplied by your average deal size, right? And you divide it by your sales cycle, how long it takes you to close a deal, sales cycle. This is the sales velocity equation. So in a sense, Ashke, you need to work on 4 things. How do I get more opportunities in my pipeline? Once I get in front of them, how do I close them? How do I increase my close rate? Average deal size, how do I make a bigger sale? And then how do I reduce my sales cycle? So if you can reduce your sales cycle and then increase these 3, you'll typically see, and I think the number is a 47% increase in sales. So everything that's in the Sales Velocity Academy is geared towards increasing the number of opportunities, increasing your close rate, increasing that, and then reducing your sales cycle. And my dog is chewing on something. Hold on a second. Okay. Come here. All right. So this is Pebbles again. Got to do the whole Pebble. Pebbles brought this thing upstairs, and so she's chewing on this. So if you hear a click in the background, that's her. Okay? Say hi, Pebbles. She really doesn't care about you guys. Hold on a second. All right. All right. Go play over there. And there she goes. Sorry about that, guys. All right. Anyway, so hopefully that was a good answer for you. You got that. Let's see what else we got. How do I understand how a prospective client, what is a good way to pre-qualify clients? It's just sit down, Sanjana, ask yourself what type of clients you're looking for. And then ask yourself, what questions should I ask that would make them the ideal client? Okay, that's the most we can do right here, but it's a good question. First of all, figure out who you want to go after. What type of clients do I want? So for example, if you're selling, who was I doing? We were talking about somebody yesterday. We were talking about insurance. And a gentleman said, I sell insurance. I said, who do you sell to specifically? He says, well, Victor, if they're between 35 and 45 and they're married and have kids, these people are my ideal clients, right? That's the ideal client. So if you know that's your ideal client, some of the questions I would ask would be geared towards trying to find out what's their age without asking them, are they married without asking them, and do they have kids without asking them. These are things I would find out. Oh, by the way, the other one was where they live, their area code, zip code rather. And so that's another way of doing it. So then you build, once you know what your ideal client is, then you build questions to qualify those people. That's the best way of doing it. Cool, love it. All right, that's the dog, yep. Find their problem, Joe, you got it, all right. And then use your product or service to solve their problems. Absolutely, can't argue with that logic. 2, how do I decrease the time and clients take to make a decision? They sometimes postpone the decision and then it just drags out too much and the sale never happens. There's a phrase here that we say here in the US, hopefully if you're not in the US, time kills all deals, right? Time kills all deals. In other words, the longer it takes to close a deal, it kills all deals. So you want to shorten the sales cycle. That's why it's important. So without knowing your sales process, what I would say to you is find ways to squeeze the sales process. Like for example, if they have to fill out paperwork, maybe you haven't filled the paperwork out beforehand. If they have to give certain approvals, right? Then find a way, because that's the tough part. You can't control, once the proposal's on their side, you really can't control the process internally. But let's say that there's 5 people involved in the decision making. What I would try to do is get a meeting with all 5 people to make sure that everybody's on the same page, and that would shorten the actual sales cycle. So there's many ways of doing it depending on what your sales process is. Sorry for the short answer, but there it is. Victor, you have a good day as well, man. Thank you. GFE's back. If you were to teach an 8-year-old child how they should sell, it's a great question already, the way you're starting this one. What's the first thing you would tell them? I'm watching, learning, and adapting. Thank you. Man, I've never had anybody ask me that question. That's a beautiful question. I'm going to take a screenshot of that question because nobody's ever asked me that one. That's a unique one. If I were teaching an 8-year-old kid, besides being cute, I would teach them to be very respectful. That would be my first thing. Do you know what I mean? Say thank you. May I ask you a question? I would teach them to be polite. That would be the first thing I would teach them, right? Just to have a nice conversation and to look the person in the eye. Teach them how to shake their hand, right? Like, it's interesting because kids need to learn that. Just teach them how to shake hands, right? And just introduce themselves, shake hands. So, I would teach them, okay, here's how you say your name, and then you reach out and you wait for them to tell you their name, and then you shake their hand. And then you say, whatever, can I ask you a question? Or just, something like that. That's a good question, though. It's a celebration, man, it is. GFE, man, you're really enjoying this session. Victor, I'm also going to stop picking on you for today. The last question, how do we know that a salesman is sleazy or trying to sell a steak, or don't be a sleazy salesperson. Well, by the way, the best way to tell if somebody's really like sleazy, in your words, is that if they're trying to pressure you, like high pressure you into buying something, then there's usually something wrong, right? There's usually something wrong. But thank you for messing with me, man. I'm all good with that, man. Ashke, you're very welcome, man. And I think this might be the last one. Victor, I'm drop shipping some things on Instagram, and there are lots of businesses using Instagram for sales. What would you suggest us to do? I just bought a very expensive chair because I saw an Instagram ad, a very expensive chair. So Instagram, I think it works. You know what I mean? I think it does work. So I don't know if that's the question you're asking me, but I think it works, man. So Like again, it's all testing, right? Because what graphics, what videos, who do you target? All that stuff really matters. So it's a big question, man. But if you're asking me, Instagram works. I bought some stuff from Instagram. The last purchase I made was a very sizable purchase from Instagram. In fact, when I went to the store and I told the guy, because he said, how did you find us? I said, on Instagram. He almost fell off his chair. He goes, nobody's ever bought this type of product off Instagram. I'm like, there you go. I'm here. So some sales guy owes me a commission, or at least a little something, man. Kids are already good salespeople. Great that they, want from the parents. Yeah. I mean, kids are just the best salespeople. To reduce the sales cycle, one of the strategy you thought is SAD and Auto Trader method. I've already applied it. So by the way, in fact, I was thinking of saying this. So I'm glad you. So the M&M here was listening to one of my. We're talking about reducing friction in the buying process, right? To make things go faster. In other words, increase or lower the sales cycle. And then they have a program. Auto Trader has a deal called Accelerate My Deal. Accelerate My Deal, where you get to fill out all the stuff before you go to the car dealership. You get to fill out on an app, what type of car you want, what type of incentives you want to use, how much down payment. If you have a trade-in, you can actually get a blue book value. They'll give you an offer. You can tell them what percentage you want to pay on your mortgage or loan rather, and then also what type of monthly payment you want to have. And this is all before you get there. So this is another way of accelerating the sales process, right? So M&M, thank you very much. Great point, man. Great point, man. Kamlesh, thanks, Victor. You are a god of sales. That's too much, but thank you. You have helped me in transforming my business. Once again, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for the nice words, man. I appreciate that. How to reactivate or recapture the client. If there was no sale for at least 1 year or so, and if he is no value client. Two questions there. And by the way, great strategy, Manish. I mean, if you think about it, we don't often think about this, right? But I talked about this in one of my programs, one of my live streams, and that is that you can either gain new clients, right? There's 4 ways of getting clients, I said, and I'll just repeat it very quickly. You can gain new clients, right? You can retain your existing clients. This is how you grow your business. You can grow, which means upsell and cross-sell. And then on this one, I said you can reactivate old clients, right? Which is what you're asking me about. And I'm saying this is a great strategy most people don't consider. Most people play over here in these 3 strategies right here. And what they don't see, I'm going to highlight this one because this one deserves highlighting. So most people are just playing here, these 3 strategies, and which are good strategies. But right here in this reactivation zone, man, there's some money to be made here by going after clients who bought from you in the past, who have bought, had some value, right? Who have some value that will probably buy again if you just reach out and touch. I would get together with marketing and create some type of campaign to go after that business. That's how I would do it, And so, by the way, if they had no value in the past, I don't want them back. If they had no value in the past. But again, there's nothing wrong with, what if you scheduled your day? Manish, what if you scheduled your day where I'm going to call new clients, but then every day I'm going to reach out to at least 2 non-activated clients. Clients who are dormant. We call them dormant. They went to sleep. Dormant clients. What if you just called maybe 2 a day just to reach out? You might get lucky. Remember, they know who you are. They bought from you in the past. So they're not cold calls. They're more like warm calls. So I think it's a great strategy, man. I think you should do it. Let me see. Is this Trevor? Trevor, Vic, thanks for the book. How to integrate case studies into a sales process, or even let the case studies do the selling. The answer is yes. Integrate them into your sales process. Cherry pick them. Be very selective, man. And make sure that they support whatever you're trying to position. If you're trying to position what you've done for a customer in the past, make sure it's in the same industry because obviously if it's similar, it resonates with them more. Quantity is not a value here. It is quality. And the quality in this case would be, does it relate to their industry? And can you demonstrate real value, real growth? So that's how I would do it. So don't let the thing do it for you, man. Help it along, if you know what I mean. Hope to see you again. I wish I could work for you if you had the chance. Thank you, brother. Wash hands, wash hands, wash hands. Thank you, Steven. You're awesome. Chad, throwing some fire at the end. Chad, I think I'm going to end it on there, man. That's a good way to end that thing. You're welcome, Manish. Thank you guys all for joining me. We're on here about an hour and 45 minutes. To the guy who left early, I forgot his name, Hemingway one. Come on back, brother. I'm not a jerk. I'm not that bad. I'm a nice guy, man. So thank you guys again. And remember, selling ain't hard when you know how. So take care. Have a great weekend, all. Take care.